Now to talk about what he's heard from local business owners and the growing opposition to Major League Baseball, as well as the woke corporations there in Georgia that have spoken out in opposition to the election reform bills that the governor signed into law, is Barry Loudermilk, who represents Northwest Georgia's 11th Congressional District. Barry, welcome back to the program.
Tony, it's good to be with you.
So what are you hearing from the business owners there in terms of their view of Major League Baseball?
Well, they're incredibly disappointed. Just the week before they made the announcement, I had put together a little luncheon with some of the businesses that happen to be in the area of Truist Park. And a lot of these business owners there are owners of businesses that, they support tourism or the convention industry, and they have been devastated by the COVID pandemic. And they were really looking forward to the All-Star game as that one event that would kind of catapult them back into the game, per se. I mean, they had lost so much money. This was the one thing that was going to put them back in business again. And I remember as we were talking about, the issues of business and how they've struggled and all that we've been trying to work together on, they said, well, at least we have the All-Star game coming up. And one of the business owners said, well, we're hearing that they may move it over their take on the Georgia election law. And pretty much the consensus was, well, they're not going to do this because, first of all, it doesn't do what the left is saying it does. And second of all, Major League Baseball has been pretty apolitical. But just a couple of days later, they made the announcement, which has been devastating to a lot of businesses there. And they are frustrated. They're already frustrated with the federal government because they can't compete with the government paying people to stay at home more than they can afford to have them come to work. And then for Major League Baseball to stick its nose in something like this based on false information has really significantly hurt a lot of businesses. Like I said, this was going to be the thing that put them back into business again after losing so much during COVID.
And the irony here is a lot of these businesses were minority-owned businesses. They pull out, they go to Denver, and there are very, very few minority-owned businesses there in Denver. So it does not add up. And I think the voters are saying through this, a poll by the University of Georgia found roughly that 54% of registered Georgia voters opposed the April decision to move the event to Denver. And it was interesting, though, Barry, that it doesn't stop just with the Major League Baseball because, Delta stuck their nose into this. Right. So did Coke, Diet Woke. I quit drinking it. I'm now doing the off-brand. 60% of Georgia's opposed companies using their public role to shape political opinion and promote cultural change. 86% of Republicans, 55% of independents, and about 56% of Democrats saying the same thing. Basically saying, look, if you make widgets, leave the public policy to the politicians.
Exactly. And it used to be, and you know this, Tony, when your time in the state legislature and my time in the state legislature and in Congress is, for most part, businesses were mostly interested in tax policy and regulatory policy and trade. That was it. That's where they engaged in politics. But we're seeing a growth in businesses that are getting involved in social issues. And they're following this woke movement and the cancel culture. And a lot of that is based on false information, just like you saw in Georgia. The information that came out that President Biden came out with, the bill does not do. It was false information that was fed to them by the left and their talking points. And I mean, it should have been an embarrassment for the occupant of the White House to get 4 Pinocchios by Washington Post. You know how liberal Washington Post is. For them to even come out and say the president was, I think 4 Pinocchios is the highest rating that they can give, with him saying that this was equated to Jim Crow laws. This is crazy. All the Georgia law does is it makes it easier to vote, harder to cheat, and it further expanded voting availability beyond what many of the other states, including New York, where Major League Baseball is located. It further expanded beyond what New York allows for their voting. So it's crazy. And yes, most people, and I would say if you polled the Georgians specifically in Northwest Georgia area, around Truist Park is going to be in the 80% that are opposed to Major League Baseball moving the All-Star game.
Barry Loudermilk, let me ask you one final question. Is this going to? I mean, I know from my days in the legislature, big business had lobbyists there because they wanted to make sure they had good regulation, tax policy. Mostly, they were concerned about policy that affected them. Of course, now they've gone way beyond that with their, as you said, their woke agenda. Is this going to backfire on them in state legislatures and in Congress where they may not find favorable standing with those conservative lawmakers any longer?
Well, it very well could. If you look at Delta, you brought up Delta. When I was in the state legislature, almost every year, the final bill that we would work on, a bill that we work on usually in the final day, was a tax exemption for Delta Airlines for their fuel purchases at Atlanta Hartsfield Airport. The law is carefully crafted to where only Delta gets this tax break. It's written in such a way that you have to be an airline based in Georgia with a hub here and you fly so many aircraft, et cetera. It's always controversial because Democrats have been opposed to them getting this tax break. Republicans have usually gone on and voted to give them this tax break. Only Delta gets this tax break from the legislature, and it's the governor has been pushing it for them. For them to come out the last day of session and do what they did, it's caused a lot of people in the state legislature to question whether they need to go back in the special session that we're going to be having for redistricting and maybe readdress this tax break, because the money that is derived from aviation fuel cells in Georgia goes to rural airport development. And a lot of these airports could use a lot of that money to help with their economic development. So you may see something happen that way.
All right, we're going to watch that closely. Got to leave it there. Out of time. Thanks so much for joining us, folks.